Alright, so the next part of this, we're going to create a globe. And although this seems like a simple type thing, essentially it's a sphere. Um, the sphere is not the difficult part, it's just creating this kind of stuff. And it's not even that difficult, it's just, something we have to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Maya. And when we come back into Maya every day, we have to go to File and say Set Project. Okay, we have to tell Maya what we're working on. So I'm going to go into my folder, which is 2510, Work, Desk Sarcona. I just click on my name, Desk Sarcona, and hit Set. Then we go to File Open. I go to my latest file, which is, I believe, Desk Chair Book. The book. Okay, this is all the stuff that I have in here. All right, so now we can create the other stuff. Now, if I want to be able to have this stuff in my scene, but not be able to select it, I'm going to come over here to my layers. Make sure I'm not yelling at you. Let's turn that audio down. I'm going to come over here to my layers and just hit this middle button. Now, the middle one is going to make it as what's called a template, okay? Meaning it's basically in wireframe. You would typically use this to kind of model on top of, or just use it as a way to kind of see what's happening inside of an object. So I'm going to hit it again until it goes to R, which is reference. Okay, so now I can't select this stuff. So I can't accidentally delete it or move it or screw it up. So let's create, we'll do it in order. We'll start with the base first and we'll work our way up to this band and then we'll do the sphere. Okay, so the base, I'm just going to create a cylinder. And this is going to go on top of our shelf, so I'm just going to put it up here. And I'm not going to move it back yet, I'm just moving it up. I'm scaling it down. And just getting the basic size of this thing. Globes are all different sizes. There's no, I could have a globe that's that big or I can have one that's that big. Okay, so I'm just kind of sizing this to kind of fit nicely on here. Alright, that should be good. Okay, now if I look at this from the top view, you'll see that this cylinder, which should be pretty round, is actually pretty faceted. There's basically just like flat area, flat area, flat area. We also have this little star up on top, so I'm going to get rid of the star. So I'm going to go to my polycylinder options, go to my caps, and turn that to 0. That way there's no subdivisions for the caps. It goes away. Then I'm going to go to my subdivision axis here and just put that up to 40. That creates more lines going around. We still have faceting, but we really have to zoom in. Oh, too close. We really have to zoom in to be able to see it. Okay, and you can still barely see it. All right, but it's there. Okay, from this view, you really can't tell. All right, and that's the thing, is it's just an illusion. So 40 for the subdivision axis, 0 for the caps. That's good. Now I'm just going to grab this top face, and I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, put Bevel, and then just change my settings. So 0.2 here and 2 there. Right click, back to object mode, click off, and there's our base. Okay. Now you may notice this one's a bit rounder. Okay, if I was able to zoom in on here, we can see how round this thing is. The picture is just for reference. We just use it as kind of like a way to reference what things look like, and then we can kind of tweak it on our own. Okay. Now you will notice on here too, if I get close, that we're getting this weird funkiness that's happening right there. If I go back to my bevel options, I can go to the smoothing angle and put that up to 180. And what that's going to do is it's going to smooth out that transition. Okay. So bevel angle 180. Now I'll show you where this would be something we want to use or modify. Is let's pretend that I had a sphere. Okay, it looks pretty nice and round. What if I didn't want it to look nice and round? What if I wanted it to look like a bunch of flat planes, which is what it is? If I go up to my normals menu and I say harden, now you can see that I have basically just a bunch of individual faces. Well, if I want it soft, I go to normals and I say soften. And now it's soft again. Okay? So that's what this thing was doing, is that it was giving us the default, which is 30 degrees of whatever it figures that out to be. Okay. So if I go up here to normals and I say harden edge, we get this hardened, really faceted look. If I go up here and I go to normals and I say soften, it's going to soften it. Now you can see on the bottom here that it actually softened this too, and that gives it kind of like a weird look to it. Okay, so I could actually grab the bottom face and I could say, okay, on the bottom face I want you to be hard, but on the top ones I want you to be soft. Okay, so we can do it on a per face basis. We can also come over here and you see there's an angle in this. I can change this angle to 0 and it makes it hard, even though I told it to be soft. Or I can make it 180, which is the highest, and it makes it soft. Okay, so there's an angle in here that I can play with to get different results. Okay, so ideally, or not ideally, but in games, they make a lot of their characters look really smooth by just softening their normals. Okay, so there's the base. There's a little thing right here. I'll make that when I make this other piece. Maybe. We'll see. So I'm going to create another cylinder. Again, there's 538 ways to do all of this stuff. Okay. This is why I didn't want to move this out of the way, because now this comes in perfectly centered. I'm going to rotate it in the Z direction. 90 degrees. Now how do I know it's the Z direction? Well, experience is number one. But if I look at this blue right here, that's the direction I know I want this to rotate. Okay? And if we remember, blue is going to be Z anytime we encounter it. So 90 degrees. And let me make this thing big. Just looking at this, you can see it's quite larger than that. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with our caps. Let's get rid of the caps. And I added more divisions, so we have more divisions there, so it's nice and smooth. A little bit bigger. Okay, so now I'm going to right click and go to face, and I'm going to marquee, or let's just do a click first. I'll click on this face and delete. Click on that face and delete. And then I'm going to click on the faces I don't want to keep. So essentially, imagine this is a big cylinder thing we have left over. I'm just going to delete, it looks like half of it. Okay. So I can do that simply by just going here and holding down Control Shift. Control Shift is your adder. So if I hit Control Shift, you can see that it's only adding to my selection. If I was using Shift, Shift is a toggle. So if I had something selected, it's going to deselect it. If I had something not selected, it will select it. Okay, so Control, Subtractor, Shift, Toggle, Control Shift is your adder. Alright, so I've got half of it. I think I want to have a little bit more than half, so I'm just going to Control deselect those guys. Okay, with my design, I can do what I want with it. And I'll even keep a couple extra just in case. Alright, so essentially I have half plus 2 on the top plus 2 on the bottom. Okay, so those are extras that I may delete. So now we can go to object mode and rotate this on that angle. And I'm glad I kept that. I think I like having those there. Okay, I'm going to drop my sphere in just so I can get a good placement and good judgment of where my stuff is at. Where are you at? There you are. Okay, again, the sphere is going to be rotated, so I'll just rotate this like that. Down a touch. I can go to the front view, side view. I hold the space bar, hold the Maya, or the right view, hit F to frame it. And then I can look at the spacing around and say, okay, well, it looks good, but I think it might need to be moved over and up. Okay, no one's going to be throwing a micrometer in the mix here. If you're unfamiliar with what the micrometer is, it's this thing judging how thick a piece of metal is. So no one's going to be judging it and seeing, fine-tooth comb how centered we are here. Okay, as long as it looks centered, we're good. So now I'm going to grab this outside piece. I'm going to go to Edit Mesh. I'm going to say Extrude. I'm just going to give it thickness. I can go inside or outside. It doesn't matter. I think I'm going to go inside just so I have that room there. Okay, that's good. That's good. There should be a pole sticking through that kind of connects this thing. So let me go to Create Polygon Cylinder. Again, we'll pull up the cylinder. I'm going to go to Scale. So I'm going to scale this down. Now if I want to scale it up, I just have to go to R and grab just the green. Okay. Now I'm at a point where let's say I like where the green is, but I don't want to, I want to just scale the blue and the red. I don't want to do this because it's very difficult for people to eyeball and get this thing to still stay round. You see that now that is ovally shaped. If my video ended up squished, then it's probably perfectly round, but essentially it's oval shaped. So what we're going to do is I hold the control key and I click on the direction I don't want it to go. I don't want it to go in the Y direction. I want to keep it in the Y direction exactly where it's at. So I hold control, click and drag on the Y, and you can see how it scales it down in the other two directions uniformly. Now I can adjust in the Y. Now I can rotate it here. Okay, I'm going to turn on my wireframe. So I'm going to click on this white box. That way I can see where my poles are. So I know where this is supposed to be going. Looks pretty good. Maybe a little adjusty here and there. I can actually click on this and see this is -29. Oops. And then I can type in -29 here. And just to scoot a bit more over. And then a little bit more scaling in the Y just because it's poking through. Oops. There we go. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to take this guy and put a bevel on him. Okay. Now, should we do it before we extrude this face down for that? We'll try it both ways and see which way works better. Okay. And just so we can kind of test it out, I'm going to duplicate and pull this over here. So I'm going to go here and just say bevel. Okay, we're going to run into the same problem we had with the chair. We don't really see it now, but if I turn the wireframe off, you can see how we're introducing that faceting. Okay, and we can't go in here and change this to 180 and get rid of that faceting because it's kind of like locked in because we have extra edges there. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is go to Edges, double click the edge, Shift, double click, Shift, double click. You can also Control Shift. Okay, and then I'm also going to grab these cap pieces here too. Everywhere I have a hard edge, that's where I want my bevel to be. So Edit Mesh, Bevel. Let's put 2 segments. Let's put this to 0.2, 0.3. Okay. And now that looks pretty nice. Okay, we could even hit 3 on this to smooth it out more if we decided we just want a little extra smoothness to it. All right, so now if I take that and I say, okay, well this is the bottom, so I want that area there to be where I pull from. So I extrude, pull it out, scale it out, and then I look at this and I say, oh, well now I need a bevel on this, okay, because now that doesn't look perfect. So I go in here and I grab all the edges like that. And I go to bevel. What we're going to see is right in these corners here, it may not match up perfectly, especially if we try to add more than just one division. If I go in here and I add 2 divisions, it definitely has... I'm zooming in too close. I just have to change my clipping plane. There we go. You can see how we're getting this like weird patterny thing here. I mean, it kind of works, but I like to avoid that. I like to do all my bevels kind of like at one time. Okay, so I mean, this obviously could work as long as we don't get too close to that. So now I'm going to go back to this. If I want to create this and not have all this other junk in the way, I'm going to first extrude this guy down. So just extrude. That way I know where it's coming from. Actually, I'm going to do a little bit more work on that. So point. Oops. I'm offsetting it to 0.05. That's not way too much still. 0.01. My mouse fell. I'm going to then extrude it again. Pull it down. Hit the scale tool and scale it out. There we go. Alright, that's good. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is isolate just this one piece just so I can work on it. So I click on this little green box with a red arrow. So now it's isolated. So now I can go to Edge, double click, hold down Shift, double click, Shift, double click all these. And then I can even do a Control Shift and just marquee that edge. Okay? So you can see what I have selected. I have all of these edges going down here. And then I have the end. Okay, I'll do the same thing on this side. Okay, you'll notice that I had to reselect these ones. Not reselect them, but select them because when I double click it, it grabs the loop. Well, the loop stopped about here. Okay, so I just have to make sure that I grab all the stuff. Just like on the desk, you want to make sure you grab all the stuff that you need to at the correct time. Okay, so now I'm just going to spin around. And I'm going to say, okay, there's a hard edge, there's a hard edge. And then all of these are hard edges. That's fine. That's good. That's good. Okay, so now we'll put a bevel on this. You hit undo. Just only got transition that's right there, so I'm just going to shift click these guys also, and then do another bevel. There we go, that'll work. There we go. So now that's done. I can go through and just make sure that my bevel's on all the spots I need it to be. Make sure that's not anywhere funky. Sometimes you'll accidentally select something like that while you're doing your bevel, and you'll end up with something where you have a double edge right there. So you have to go back before you did your bevel, deselect it, and then redo your bevel again. Okay, so there's that. So now to get everything else back, we click on this thing again. So now we have all of our stuff. Okay, so now let's go through, and we'll just take this and let's see that picture again, not the micrometer. Good. Just nudge that a little bit over this way. It just seemed like it was a little bit off center. Okay. Alright, so now we need to kind of keep this organized. And this is our first thing that we've done that has several pieces. Okay, So if you look at this, we have the cylinder for the base, we have that piece, we have the sphere, and then we have that rod that's going down the middle. So let's call this rod. Drop my mouse again. We have the earth. We have the longitude, latitude, and we have our base. Okay, so I'm going to take all four of these objects. I'm going to Control G to group them, and I'm going to call this globe. Oops. Globe. Okay. Now my pivot for that group is down here on the bottom. So I'm going to hit center pivot, okay, or modify center pivot, and then I'm going to hold down the D key, and I'm just going to move this to the bottom of the globe. Okay, I can even go in my front view, get close to this, hold down the D key, and drag. It's hard to see, but there's a green line right here, right above that yellow box. I'm just clicking and dragging and lining that up at the bottom. Okay, jump back to perspective, and then just slide this in, set it on the desk, scoot it over, and I can even give this a little bit of a rotation that way. Okay, now it's very important that we grab the group anytime we're moving stuff around. Even though this is grouped, if I click on a piece and move it, it's not going to move everything. Okay, or if I grab all the pieces like this and I try to rotate them, you can see how they all go crazy. All right, I need to make sure I grab the group and rotate the group. Okay, the individual objects can still animate and can still rotate. For our final animation of this, we're actually going to animate this thing just kind of slowly rotating. Okay, nothing crazy, but just slowly rotating. Okay, so that's how we do the globe. So let's take this. We'll actually grab the group. And there's a new layer button here. We'll call this globe. Underscore layer. There we go. And then we'll reference it because we don't want to mess it up. Okay, now let's see what else we can create for our desk. Let's create, let's do something kind of fun, because it's kind of boring just modeling. Let's model something for the back of this, but we're going to do it in a fun way. Okay, so I want to model, like, maybe they have a blanket that they want to use. So I'm going to create a polygon plane. I'll stretch it out like that. That's about good. More like a throw blanket, or just something to keep you warm. I don't know. Maybe it's a towel. That looks more like a towel, so we'll make it a towel. So I'm going to come over here to my polyplane options, and I'm just going to play with my width, my subdivision width, and subdivision height until these things are square. Okay, so if you look at the individual face, it looks a little bit rectangular. So I'm just going to play with it until those look more square, like that. Okay, so that looks pretty square, pretty cool. So I'm going to grab it again, and I'm going to go under end mesh on the very bottom. I'm going to say create end cloth. Okay, I'm going to click on this chair. Oops, I have to unreference the chair. I click on the chair, go back to the hotbox, go to end mesh, and say create passive collider. I'm going to make sure I have enough frames down here, so I'm going to give myself 200 frames. Actually, I like to go 500 because it's better just to have more than less. Okay, so now I'm going to hit play, and nothing at all is going to happen. Let me rewind it and try that again. Hit play, there we go. So I had to rewind it and then hit the play button. And you can see that that blanket just kind of like fell on the chair. And it's also kind of fitting the shape to the chair. Okay? And what I mean by that is, let's pretend that I had this thing at some crazy angle like this, and I hit play. Oops, there it goes, and it falls and it goes down forever, so we don't have a ground. Okay, this is Encloth, and it's really cool to be able to do stuff like this because we can basically just create some objects and just drop them places, as opposed to having to model this thing to look exactly like that. We could also, we have to be careful with this because if we put it on the desk's not colliding. When I went to NMesh and I said passive collider, that's what makes it collide with the object. Okay, I can do lots of things with this. I can reshape this and move it around. I can probably put it here, as long as it's not intersecting. If it's here, I hit play, you can see how it just gives me like, and just like falls right through it. So I can just drop it right there. Okay. Now if I don't want it to just fall like it's falling, I can hit Control A to get the attribute editor. I can go to collisions, and I can turn the friction and the stickiness up. Okay, maybe not the stickiness up. That looks funny. We'll turn it up a little bit, but not a lot. There we go. Okay. So now I just created this little blanket that's, you know, right there. And I could also make this bigger too. I could go like that. I don't want to change the proportions of it because then I'm losing my squares. So I'm just going to leave it like this. Hit play, and you can see I get totally different results. Okay, I don't want to hide the chair. So I'm going to keep it the same shape that it was. Okay. I'm going to take my stickiness down just a little bit more. There we go. So we have the friction there that just kind of keeps it on the chair. Alright. I think I would like to have it up top and not on this inner one because that just looks weird. There we go. So that looks good. That looks like something that, you know, a college student might have. Maybe even off to the side a little bit. There we go. Alright. So now that we have this thing here, in order for us to get it to stay, I rewind it, it jumps back here, I hit play, and it falls, which is what we want. But I want it to stay here the entire time. I don't want it to animate, I just want it to stay. So I'm just going to hit Control D to duplicate it. So now I rewind it. I have a duplicate here that's in the exact spot. And then I have my original. So I can just delete the original now. And then if I go to the outliner, I have some other stuff in here I can delete. The nucleus, the end rigid, and there we go. Okay. So now I have this. I can go to my channel box and rename to be blanket, let's say. It's super duper thin. It's a piece of paper basically. So I'm going to go to Edit Mesh. I'm going to go to Extrude. And there's my blue arrow. I'm just going to give it a little pull. Okay, that gives it some thickness. Back to object mode. And now it looks like it's an actual blanket. Okay, or something that's just laying on the chair. So we'll go and add this. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm just going to call this one Details. So I don't have a layer for every single object, but I want to have a layer for just like these extra little detail-y type things like that. Okay, so I'm just going to re-reference my stuff. Oopsie daisy. Let me go through and save my scene as. Here, let's call this globe towel. I'm calling it startup. It doesn't matter. As long as we have it saved as something, we're good. Okay. So now we can go and create some other stuff. So let's go create cylinder. And this is going to be, just so we know what it's going to be, we have an image for it. It'll be a pencil holder. Or a pen holder, or whatever. Obviously, there's different kinds of pencil holders. There's this one, which I've never actually seen before, but it looks pretty cool. It's a recycle a phone book. That's actually pretty awesome. Porcupine. Those things are all over the place. There's these kinds of things. So we're just going to create a very basic one. Something that, along this line. Okay, just basically a cup. And we can put a picture on the cup to make it look like other stuff. Okay. Again, we're trying to keep things simple, just to kind of add detail to things and get the idea across of how to use the tools. Okay, obviously we can't put it underneath here because then we won't be able to put pencils in it or reach them. So we'll set this off to the side. Let's go to our caps and put that to 0. Our subdivisions, I think we're probably good here. Let's just go up 30. Okay, it's not going to be seen from the same angle, so we don't need to have a crazy amount of divisions. So now we're going to go to face and grab this face. Hotbox, edit mesh, extrude. I'm going to offset. Too much. Too little. Perfect. We're going to extrude again. Edit mesh. Oops. Extrude and push it down. Okay, now I need to know how far, so I'm going to go to wireframe and just look at this and say, there we go. Hit 5. Go to edges, double click, shift, double click, edit mesh. Oops. I also want to do this bottom one. Scoop my cup above sky. So let's go to face, grab that face, go to edges, shift click this, shift click that. I could, if I was going to see the inside, I could do that, but I'm not. So I'll do a bevel. We'll go 0.2. That's good. And that should be it. There we go. So now we have this pencil cup. If I decide that's a little bit too rounded or too wide, I can always, if I scale it, it works obviously. But I'm also scaling my bevel and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go to my cylinder and just change my radius here. And I can also go back to my original extrude that I did, number 5. Hit T. And then I can change this extrude offset. So now it's 0.01. Okay? And everything else will be good. Everything else works still. So actually, I like that size better anyway. I don't think the bevel went on the bottom. It didn't. Let's try that again. Let's go back to bevel. There we go. 0.1, 0.05, 0.02. There we go. And on the bottom, I think I'll add an extra division. Okay. And then, of course, I want to make sure that I go through and make these 180 for their smoothing, because it's a smooth object. Perfect. Okay, so there's our pencil cup. Or a pencil holder, whatever your phrasing is you want to use. Pencil holder. We can delete the history on it because we're good. My pivot, I'm going to put on the bottom. So I'm going to hold down D and V. And I'm going to click on the green line. And it snaps it. You can see it snaps it like right to the bottom. Perfect. Good. Okay, so now let's save the scene as. Pencil holder. Alright, so there's our pencil holder, but we don't have the pencils or anything else in it yet. So I'm going to create a cylinder, a polygon cylinder. We're doing polygons for everything. Let me just shrink this down. Rotate it. Obviously, you want to make it about the size of a pencil. All right, so there's our size of a pencil. Now, in this case, we probably do want to go and knock this down. All right, so we got that. We want to take this down to, if we looked at a pencil, see how it has these like little facets on it. That's what we want to create. So I think there's about 8 or 6. 8 looks good. Okay. And I'm going to take this vertex here. Just pull it out. Ta-da! A pencil. A bit long, so let's go to vertex, grab these. Pull it in. Back to object mode. Okay. A little bit more detail we can add to this. I'm going to go to the Insert Edge Loop tool. Drop in a division here. Ooh, there we go. Another division there. The cool thing about pencils is that there's no really like one set size, because obviously you can have different things happening to it. Just thinking. I'm going to add another division right here. There, right here. Alright, let's try this. Alright, so I'm going to go to edges now, and oops, I want to double click. I'm just going to grab all these edges here, because these edges would be basically these ones there, and if you look at them, there is a little bit of rounding that happens to them. Okay, and this metal piece is actually a cap. Maybe we should put a cap on there instead of having this built into it, but we'll see. Let's bevel this. Back to object mode. Okay, looks like we're okay. Whoa, too close. Okay, so let me go back to my bevel, and we'll take the offset down. Point. Like 0.1 with one segment should be good. And I think I can go here and go to mesh smooth. Let's just see what happens here. Not what I wanted. Let's undo that. Okay, let me grab these faces. I'm going to go to normals and let's say soften. Soften. Okay, I'm getting some funky results there. I don't really care for those results. So I'm going to go to, I want to insert an edge loop going around here. But you can see that's not going to let me. Alright, and the reason it's not going to let me is because if I click on this edge and I count these edges, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges that are making up this face. Okay, it doesn't like that. So I'm going to go to the top view, hit F to frame it. I'm going to zoom in on that area, and I'm going to go to edit mesh. I'm going to say cut faces tool. So I'm going to hold shift to constrain it, click and drag, and I get this little plus sign thing. Okay, this is going to essentially put in a division regardless of anything else. So now I can grab this edge, pull it back, scale it up, and essentially that edge is just a transition going from my hard pencil area to this smooth area. And I can even add another division. Oops, not there. You can't do it in perspective view because it doesn't turn out right. So I always jump to top or side or front, add another division, and then I can just grab these points and just pull them in and scale them down. Okay, and then I'll grab these faces and go to normals. I'll try normals soften first and see if that looks good, or if it looks acceptable. Maybe not. All right, let's try grabbing this and then going to mesh smooth. Back to object mode. There we go. So that's acceptable. That looks like a pencil there. Okay, now we'll work on this side. Same thing, I need to put in that transitional piece. So I'm going to go to my top view. Oops. I'm going to go to cut faces tool. Come on. All right, to be in object mode. Back to cut faces. There we go. I can grab these faces here and go to mesh smooth. Under the smooth face, there's a couple options. I want to say just smooth UV border off, keep selection border off. There we go. Okay, so now we get this nice smooth shape that I can just kind of tuck into this. Alright, and I'm just going to add a little bit more stuff to this. I'm just going to add in, and take this edge and just scoot this back, like that. I'm going to add another edge. Oops. Insert edge loop. See, the edge loop's going to work now because I did that split face. I'm going to grab this face, and I'm just going to do, come on, and extrude, and just tuck this in. It kind of breaks it up a little bit. Just gives it a little bit more dimension to it. That's all. Okay, so there's my pencil. Okay, and just like the books, don't do any duplicating of these yet. I'm actually going to stick it by this thing and not really in it. But eventually it'll go inside the pencil holder. So it's obviously, it took us a lot longer to model the pencil, which is tinier than the cup. And actually it probably took us longer to model the pencil than even the globe here. But, you know, why not? We'll have a nice pencil that we can use over and over again. So we'll delete history. We'll rename this pencil. I named that already, yes. Okay. These are my details. So I'm just going to add that to my details layer by right-clicking and adding. There we go. Okay, so we can turn everything off of our layers. We go to the outliner. There's nothing in here that isn't named. Everything's nice and organized. Good. All right. So let's stop there, and then we'll just keep working on some more stuff.